Encounter is brought to you by the Broome County Council of Churches, where we connect compassion with needs as we inspire growth with dignity. You'll find us in special places throughout the community. For those who remain hungry, we provide meals. For those who are challenged, we build wheelchair ramps. We comfort those who are ill, minister to those who are confined, and we remain an advocate for change and understanding on behalf of every element of our community. Connect and inspire. Encounter the Broome County Council of Churches.
Good morning. My name is Joe Sellepack, and I'm your host today for the Encounter Show. One of my favorite times of the year is the Christmas season. I love almost everything about this time of year. The trees, the music, the festive foods, and I always think of Irving Berlin, that this is the brightest of all seasons. When we go back to the original story, though, some of the intrigue around the original Christmas story was not very bright. Joseph and Mary go from Nazareth into Bethlehem because Caesar Augustus has made a declaration. She has to give birth inside of a cave. Then afterwards, there's this whole flight because the Magi end up going to Herod, the king of the area, and Herod ends up running after Jesus with very deadly intent. There's a flight into Egypt that is also a part of the Christmas story. So the whole idea of refugees and immigration has been a part of this Christian story for a long time. To help us perhaps even look at this whole immigration and refugee issue that is prevalent today within our political dialogue, as well as within our own personal dialogues that we're having with people all the time. I've invited two guests. Jim Dutko, who is no stranger to the Encounter program.
Nice to see you this morning, Joseph.
Yes, it's very good to have you on, Father Jim, from St. Michael's Church. And we also have Cholpon Kelly, who is from the American Civic Association.
Nice to see you today.
It's good to have you both on. So let's talk a little bit about refugees and what it means to be a refugee and an immigrant into a community. And Cholpon, can you help us understand a little bit about the process of what it means for a person in order to get to be a refugee?
The term refugee sounds simple, but it's a complicated procedure.
Right.
People who would like to become a refugee, they go through the selective process in their home countries, and they go through the vigorous process through the United Nations, or they usually referred by the local non-government, not-for-profit agencies that they work with United Nations, and then they go, if the United Nations think that they have a claim, they will go through another interview. In the case of immigrating to United States, it will be the USCIS officer who travels to that country and does the interview. And then with the conditional approval, they will go through the background checks, they will go through the medical exam, they will go through several levels of the background check, like FBI and other agencies, and it takes up to 2 years.
2 years.
Wow. Go through the whole process.
Is it and isn't it an expensive process too?
It is expensive process because it involves a lot of paperwork, a lot of things to go through. But for refugees, it usually costs shared by the United Nations and other agencies.
Okay.
Who are involved in the process.
So what we're talking about is a very extensive process.
Yes.
It requires a lot of background checks and several layers of background checks, it sounds like. So the United Nations does their own, as well as the FBI and the NSA do it here too, right?
So the several countries in the world are approved to accept refugees, and the United States is one of them. Depends what country they are referred to. They go through the initial background check through the international organizations like IOM, International Organization of Migration that works with the United Nations, and then other partner organizations will help them go through the process, and then when they're approved, they will go through the United States background check and other things.
So it sounds to me as if there's a lot of checks and balances in that system.
A lot.
Yeah, so there is a difference between refugees and immigrants. What would the difference between those two things be?
There are also several levels of difference between refugees itself, because there are refugees who just fleeing their country. They are not officially refugees until they accepted legally to that country. They are asylum seekers because they just would like to apply for asylum and see if the country approved them. The immigrants, there are several categories of immigrants, but the main difference between them, that immigrants are people who are looking for better life, maybe economically. Some of them maybe have another reasons, like family reasons. But the refugees and asylum seekers are flying from the danger and saving their lives.
So in that sense, they're kind of equivalent to what happened with Joseph and Mary when they fled Herod to go to Egypt. So this is kind of an interesting time of year for us, isn't it, Jim?
It's a very interesting time of the year. When you go back to the scripture and think about the Christmas story, we discover when Joseph and Mary show up in Bethlehem, there's no room in the inn for them. We have a lot of people live in our area who come from all kinds of places. We have to be really careful how we deal with each person. We cannot have this attitude of no room in our inn in terms of our own lives, our hearts, or how we look at people. And then, of course, then you have the other side of the story when they really become refugees for the very existence of their lives. I had the privilege a week ago, Sunday, to attend the concert by the Magical Singers that was up in the former St. Anne's, now the Holy Trinity Church in the First Ward, which was built by, I believe, Slovak immigrants. And they had some wonderful music. A lot of it was medieval kind of stuff, but one piece of music at the very end of the program was composed by a graduate of Binghamton University's music program. And it dealt with the flight to Egypt. And the poetry that was written to complement the song was gripping. I mean, I sat there listening and weeping because as I could conceive of the Christmas story unfolding, and I put in the current context of attitudes and fears and dangers and yet God's presence, it was profound because I'm sitting in a place built by immigrants who were really economic refugees from the plight of the Austro-Hungarian Empire before the start of World War I. So it ties in pretty powerfully.
Sounds like a very touching moment.
Yeah, I didn't expect this, but I found myself weeping as I listened to them sing this song because it was one thing we hear it every Christmas, no room in the inn, and then the flight to Egypt. Most of the people don't even think about it. It doesn't click. But in the society we're living in today, there's 60 million refugees. What is this? All around the world right now. And they're out of Syria, maybe 6-7 million living in refugee in tents in Jordan and Turkey and in Lebanon, these places like this. I mean, who are totally displaced because of the conflicts of war. This is a real serious situation in the world, and we have some responsibility in terms of people of faith to look at this. And
when we begin to look at even our own history as a community, I'm thinking about my own last name, and
Sellepack.
Yeah, Sellepack, and thinking about
Cholpon.
Yes, I'm thinking about my own ancestors when they came to the United States. Not only were they the Slovaks, but the other side of my family, they were from Russia.
They were the Russians.
And the Ragulas came from Russia, and my great grandmother was a Jewish immigrant from Russia.
Wow.
And what the gulags and the various things that were a part of that time period where Russian Jews were being brought together into ghettos and
Not so
herded
good.
and
Not so
and
good.
it was just so in a way, when I'm looking at my own history and my own story and my own family, I'm thinking through that lens, of, well, what did it mean? What did it mean for my ancestors to come to the United States? And
I think looking at lens is interesting because my grandparents came to the United States around 1906, 1907. They came from the old Austro-Hungarian Empire. They were Slavs, Carpatho-Russians, Russians, in the Carpathian region of what would be today's Eastern Slovakia. Economically, these people were at the bottom of the totem pole. They lived horrific lives in that society. And they came to America because America offered the possibility, the 1890s, 1900s, right before World War I, a land where immigrants would have an opportunity to work very hard in some of the most menial jobs that nobody else would want to do, work in the steel mills, work in the coal fields, this kind of stuff. But they came believing that they might earn enough money to take care of their families in Europe, maybe even go back to Europe, and if they stayed in America, that their kids would go to the local schools like here in Binghamton, the Wilson School, places like that. And within a short time, they'd become real Americans, quote, like the ability in this society, no matter where they came from, to be anything they wanted to be if they worked hard. Mm-hmm. I just shudder every time I watch the ads on TV for an insurance company that uses the Statue of Liberty as a backdrop. My grandparents on a steamer coming out of Hamburg into New York Harbor in 1907, 1906 did not look at the Statue of Liberty as an advertising prop for whether it have a half of a horse or a wagon or something. Will half of your car be replaced? Are you kidding? It was very different. It was what was on the base of that statue. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuge of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless tempest, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. I mean, it was a promise of great hope. And I think that the very vision of America has to be kept alive. We can't shut the light down because we're afraid. We have to be really careful in these days.
And Cholpon, it seems to me as if we still are trying to welcome people into citizenship in the United States. And the American Civic Association plays an important part in helping people to come to the United States. And what does the American Civic Association do, and how might they help with folks who are trying to naturalize or become citizens of the United States?
Yes, you are right. American Civic Association is working with immigrants from 1939, and we are very well known in our area because we help people. We do immigration services. We help them to apply for green cards, to become U.S. citizens. And also the other important mission we have, that we do cultural and ethnic preservation education.
Right.
We help people to adapt in the society, to understand the differences, and also we try to be very helpful in any other issue that might be related to how to better adapt to the culture, to the society, and help each other. Mm-hmm. That's why our main mission to promote brotherhood among the nations, between naturalized citizens, between native-born citizens, and all people in our area.
Because it would seem to me that there are cultural gaps going both ways between folks who are coming into the United States, expectations that they have about what is normal, and then on the other hand you have the expectations of the culture at large, who view them in some ways suspiciously.